dialect to be the Taʻizzi-Adeni Arabic. Taʻizzi-Adeni Arabic, or Southern Yemeni Arabic, is a dialect of Arabic spoken primarily in the Republic of Yemen and the nearby Republic of Djibouti. Additionally, a small minority of speakers are present in the State of Eritrea, arising from the emigration of Adeni Jews throughout the 20th century. The dialect itself is further subdivided into the regional vernaculars of Taʻizzi, spoken in Ta'iz, and Adeni, spoken in Aden. The languages that existed in this region prior to the arrival of Arabic have had long-lasting impacts upon the modern iteration of Taʻizzi-Adeni. Owing to this history, and a relative degree of geographic isolation, it has developed certain distinctive phonological and vocabularic variations. Classification. Taʻizzi-Adeni Arabic is classified as a dialect of Yemeni Arabic, itself a variation of the broader peninsular Arabic, and is native to the areas of southwestern Yemen and the nearby country of Djibouti, with a small minority of speakers in Eritrea. In 2016, it was estimated that the Taʻizzi-Adeni dialect was spoken by approximately 10.48 million people worldwide. In the regions where Taʻizzi-Adeni is spoken, for writing and pre-prepared speech, the more standardized modern Standard Arabic often supersedes Taʻizzi-Adeni as the language of choice, as is the case with most dialects across the Arab world. For this reason, Arabic and its various dialects are classified as a diglossaire, a language wherein the spoken form and the written form are divergent. Varieties. There are two further subdivisions of Taʻizzi-Adeni, namely Taʻizzi and Adeni. Taʻizzi dialect is spoken chiefly in the Yemeni governorate of Taiz and the neighbouring governorate of Ib, whereas Adeni is spoken further south, within Aden itself and the immediate, outlying, rural areas. Comparing these two subdivisions, there are certain distinctive variations, owing largely to the geography and history of the respective regions. Historically, Aden has been a trade port on the Indian Ocean and a stopping point on the Silk Road. Even today, Aden continues to be the largest dockyard service in the country of Yemen, with the three largest ports all located within the broader city. Due to the port's position on the edge of the Indian Ocean and relatively near to the Red Sea, Aden, along with its surroundings, was conquered by the United Kingdom in 1831 to be used as a trading port on the route between India and other of the United Kingdom's former colonies and Great Britain itself. The port therefore saw transitory migration from both the UK and India under British rule, and hence has had significantly more contact with the different languages and cultures in the more insular and isolated Taiz. As a result, the Adeni Arabic dialect has a higher prevalence of loan words, in particular words of both English and Indian descent, than most other dialects of Arabic. History. The contemporary Arabic language originated further north than Yemen, in and around the region of Hejaz in Saudi Arabia, and arrived at the modern area of southwestern Yemen following the early Muslim conquest of the Arabian Peninsula. Prior to the advent of Arabic, a cluster of languages collectively known as Old South Arabian was spoken in the modern region encompassed by the Taʻizzi-Adeni dialect. This group of languages were closely related to each other and, like modern Arabic, were classified within the Semitic language family. From the limited existing fragments and records of these now extinct languages, as well as by analysing their modern, surviving descendants, scholars have attempted to reconstruct and categorize their features. From what has been managed to be reconstructed, it appears that the languages have left a significant impression on the Taʻizzi-Adeni dialect and are responsible for many of the unique features of both the dialect's phonology and vocabulary. Other two main classifications of Arabic dialects, namely sedentary and nomadic, sometimes erroneously referred to as Bedouin. The Taʻizzi-Adeni dialect belongs to the former category. This distinction has been drawn as considerable differences in both phonology and vocabulary have been observed between the dialects spoken by the townships of the Arabian Peninsula and those dialects spoken by its formerly nomadic peoples. As the area where Taʻizzi-Adeni is spoken, southwestern Yemen, is one of the few areas of the Arabian Peninsula that has sufficient agricultural productivity to allow for sedentary lifestyles. The inhabitants of this area live comparatively more sedentary lives. Hence, these lifestyles are reflected in the sounds and vocabulary of the dialect. Additionally, there is a sizable community of Taʻizzi-Adeni Arabic speakers of predominantly Jewish faith who inhabit the East African nation of Eritrea. Historically, the region of Aden have maintained a strong Jewish presence going back an estimated 2,000 years to the time of the predominantly Jewish Emirates Kingdom of South Arabia. These Adeni Jews spoke the local language Taʻizzi-Adeni Arabic and were not considered ethnically or culturally distinct from the Muslim population. Following the British conquest of Aden and the establishment of the Aden Protectorate in 1839, These Adeni Jews, also referred to as Adenites, began to be identified as a separate ethnicity to the other inhabitants of the area, despite their shared history and language. The British conquest also led to an increase in immigration of Jews from other areas of the Arabian Peninsula to the recently established Aden Protectorate. Under British rule, many Adeni Jews, speaking Taʻizzi-Adeni Arabic, established commercial enterprises and communities in the nearby Italian territory of Eritrea. In 1947, following the announcement of the United Nations plan to partition the region of Palestine, large-scale riots and protests occurred throughout the British Aden Protectorate, resulting in the deaths of 82 Adeni Jews, as well as the destruction of synagogues and Jewish-owned businesses. Following this, there was a large-scale exodus of the Adeni Jews, as those that remained fled Aden en masse, settling predominantly in the priorly established communities in Eritrea, at that time a part of Ethiopia. For this reason, there still exists a relatively sizable community of Taʻizzi-Adeni Arabic speakers within the modern state of Eritrea. Consonants. Velar stop sounds can also be heard as palatal stop sounds among other speakers. Due to a somewhat isolated position amidst the mountainous Yemeni highlands, as well as the enduring impacts of the local pre-Arabic languages on speech and phonology, Taʻizzi-Adeni has developed certain distinctive features that distinguish it from the multitude of vernaculars spoken throughout the Arab world. Additionally, there are certain elements of the phonology of the Taʻizzi-Adeni dialect that are not unique to the dialect itself, but shared amongst the other dialects of Yemeni Arabic, differentiating this Yemeni cluster of dialects from the more widely spoken modern Standard Arabic. Some of the most pronounced phonological variations are the continued use of interdental fricatives, a consonant sound pronounced with the tip of the tongue touching the teeth, such as the th sound in modern English. Over the course of history, the majority of Arabic speakers have dropped this sound, instead opting to merge it with the dental stop, a sound wherein the tongue blocks the flow of air. English has many such examples, without t, d, and k sounds all exhibiting this quality. Another such example of a key phonological difference between Taʻizzi-Adeni and Standard Arabic is the replacement of the voice palatal plosive with the voice velar plosive. The difference between these two sounds is not aptly represented with the English alphabet, as both are represented by a G in the English alphabet. However, the voice palatal plosive is the sound of the G in the word geese, whereas the voice velar plosive is a more conventional G, such as those in the word gaggled. Whilst most dialects of Arabic have done away with the classical Arabic voice palatal plosive, and it only remains in a select few scattered dialects across the Arab world, Taʻizzi-Adeni is one of the few that has replaced this sound with the voice velar plosive, as most regional variations of Arabic have instead opted to replace it with the voice palato-alveolar sibilant to fricate a sound represented by the letter J in the English alphabet. Whilst the two dialects of Taʻizzi and Adeni have numerous shared features in respect to their phonologies, there exist distinctive elements within both dialects. Taʻizzi uses a voice uvular plosive in English. The sound does not exist, however. It is akin to a more guttural K to vocalize the Arabic letter, kaf. By comparison, most varieties of Arabic utilize either the voice velar plosive or the voiceless uvular plosive, respectively represented by the letters K and G in English for this letter. Further, the two emphatics of classical Arabic are pharyngalized in the Taʻizzi-Adeni dialect, meaning that the pharynx is constricted during articulation. Due to vast divergences in the pronunciation across the Arab world and an indeterminate history, it is uncertain how one of these emphatics, the classical Arabic letter Awanizir D A Macron D, was originally vocalized. It is likely, however, that the letter was used to represent a pharyngalized voiced alveolar lateral fricative phonetically representatives. This letter, along with the pharyngalized voiced dental fricative of classical Arabic, represented by the phonetic symbol, comprise the two emphatics of classical Arabic. In the dialect of Taʻizzi-Adeni, these sounds have been merged, yet have still maintained their pharyngalization to become the pharyngalized voiced alveolar stop. This is in contrast to the extant languages of modern South Arabian, from which Taʻizzi-Adeni has been significantly influenced. As in modern South Arabian, these sounds have been glottalized, wherein the glottis is closed waist articulating a sound. Vowels. Sounds are heard as after emphatic consonants. Shortened forms are heard as. In word medial position, they can be heard as and with a shortened form heard as. Sounds and can be heard as and when preceding more front articulated consonants. Sounds and can also be heard as and in various other positions. Vocabulary. Like many dialects, there are elements of the vocabulary of Taʻizzi-Adeni that distinguish it from other dialects. These differences have arisen largely due to the aforementioned historical and geographic realities of southwestern Yemen. Some examples of discrepancies and differences between Taʻizzi-Adeni and modern standard Arabic are transliterated below, with an accompanying English translation. Taʻizzi-Adeni Arabic Modern Standard Arabic Direct English Translation Nidam System of the System Igdamali Meeting Obel Latina B to take care of Media Makkudish Director Ionam B Dalain Suntain Safo Lilsafo to travel Sal Usul to ask. Further, there exists distinctive vocabularic differences between the two sub-dialects of Adeni and Taʻizzi. One such example is the use of loanwords in both dialects, as Adeni Arabic has a higher prevalence of loanwords than most dialects of Arabic. The proposed reasons for this difference are twofold. One factor influencing the integration of loanwords into any Arabic dialect is the attitude of the dialect speakers to the original language from which the loanword was derived. If speakers view the language and the process of integration with hostility, they are more inclined to resist the perceived linguistic takeover. However, those speakers who are ambivalent towards or even welcome the change are more inclined to use loanwords from foreign languages, as these individuals perceive the loanwords to be somewhat prestigious. A further factor influencing the degree to which loanwords are incorporated into dialects is the familiarity of individuals with foreign languages. Speakers who possess a comprehensive understanding of foreign languages are more likely to insert loanwords into their vernacular as a substitute for a local word or to signify a concept that did not previously exist in their regional dialect. As Aden was previously under the control of the United Kingdom, speakers of Adeni were, and are, more likely to have encountered both English and the various languages of India. Therefore, today the southern region of Yemen, including Aden, remains the epicenter of English within the country, and possesses the greatest number of individuals with a fluency in the English language. Thus, as the Adeni dialect has a greater proportion of speakers who are both more familiar with English and less hostile to pursuit foreign linguistic invasions, the use of loanwords has become more prevalent in Adeni Arabic than most other Arabic dialects, including Taʻizzi Arabic. Due to the southern region of Yemen's status as a former protectorate of the British Empire, with English settlers frequently voyaging to and even inhabiting Aden and its surrounds, English became and has maintained its position as the unofficial language of commerce and education in Aden. Further, due to the Adeni dialect's preeminence within Yemen as a source of English vernacular, the other dialects in its vicinity, such as Taʻizzi and the neighbouring Hadrami, have received English loanwords into their speech, not directly through English speakers, but indirectly through Adeni Arabic speakers.